In today's lesson, we're going to learn about publishing to mobile. So up until now, we've been just simply building our app and running it in the Unity editor, and that's about it. We'll have these like fun little games, fun little toys we'll put together. But now let's get into real meat and potatoes. The ability to actually take our game that we're building and putting it on our device, whether it be an Android or an iOS device. This tutorial today will allow you to do either and both, and that's the whole main idea behind Unity, is that you build one source code base and you publish it to both devices without having to go through the headache of making it happy for both devices, or at least not as happy as you need to make it. So that's the beauty of it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take 3 steps. The first step is we're going to make adjustments to our game so that it is mobile friendly. It doesn't matter what device. And then the second step is we'll look at what it takes to publish to Android. And then the third step was we'll look at what it takes to publish to iOS if you're a Windows developer. Now, majority of the developers out there in the world are Windows developers, so this may be of more benefit to you. For those of you guys that are using a Mac already, then when we get to publishing to iOS, things will be a bit different. You won't have to do as much work, but we won't really focus too much on it, but I'll talk about it when we get to that point. So the first thing I want you to do, whatever device you have, I have the Google Play Store device open right now, and and you would of course do this on your phone, is you'd open up the Google Play app or the Apple App Store app, and I want you to search for Unity Remote. All right, search for Unity Remote. This is what will come up for Google, but you'll see something similar for the Apple Store. So it doesn't matter which phone you're using, but the idea is I want you to be able to have, what we're going to do is we're going to use this app so we can test the mobile functionality of our game without having to worry about publishing or pushing it to the device, which can take a bit of time. It depends on how big your game is, and how powerful your computer is. It could take anywhere from an hour, it could take a half hour, it could take less than that, or it could take a whole day, right? It depends on how big the project is. So what I want you to do is I want you to download and install Unity 5 and Unity Remote 5 onto your phone or tablet for that matter. And you can see the screenshots right here. What we're going to do is once you've downloaded it, once you've installed it, plug in your computer, your phone into your computer through a USB cable. All right, and open the app. And you can see from the screenshots here, this is what you will see. So you'll see that you open the device, you plug in a USB cable, so you follow the instructions, and then we're going to go to Edit, Project Settings, and Editor. All right, so that'll be the next step. And now that you've got Unity Remote downloaded and installed into your game, what we're going to do today is we're going to continue on from our project from the last video, where we created a mini game scene as part of our game, and we had our little fembot here, and we added some animations to her. But now what we're going to do is we're going to set it up so those animations can be triggered through a mobile device rather than just pressing keys on the keyboard. But before we do that, we just talked about Unity Remote 5, and we were able to install that app to our phone, but now we have to configure it. And the way we do it is as per the instructions on the app as you've opened it. What you do is make sure that you first plug in in any order is fine. Open the app, plug in your phone to your computer via USB. If you see a message on the phone to trust the computer, just say yes. Assuming it's your full-time computer that you're using all the time, you could probably say always trust this device. And then we want to make sure that it's set up and ready to go in our Unity environment. So now that I have Unity open, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Edit Project Settings. And you can see project settings here on the side. And under Editor, Unity Remote Device, you may see your device name there specifically. If you don't, if you're using Android, choose any Android device. If you're using iOS, choose any iOS device. That'll be good enough. But you want to set the device to be any device. Now let's add some functionality to our game so that we can have some mobile effects happen here. So now that we have any Android device set up, just gonna shrink this back here. Now the trick is to add the ability in our game to receive input touches from our touch screen. So let's open the script that's related to this scene. So we have minigame script. I'm just going to open it up under project, going to scripts, find minigame page script. Since we already have it configured and set up and ready to go, now all we have to do is just modify the code here. And as you can see, the code from previous lessons, we just simply focused on the key presses on the keyboard, like letter A, letter S, and letter D, and the space bar. And A, S, and D fired different animations. The space bar fired bullets, well, little mini sphere projectiles with animations on, or with particles on them. So, so now what we're going to do is we're going to modify this so that we can take in touch input. And the beauty of coding in Unity is that we have control if statements that we can add in that will only execute certain code for, say, Android or iOS or web player or multiple at the same time. So first off, let's actually add in some private variables to receive or to keep track of the touches on the screen. So we're going to say private touch, call it the touch. Right, so whatever was touched on the screen, we'll do a private vector2, right, for touch start position and touch end position. Right, so this is more relevant for a drag, but we can also use it to test to see if we're not doing a drag by seeing if touch start position is the same as touch end position, right? So either way we need it. And the third one is not mandatory, but it's just for debugging purposes. We'll just say private string direction, right? Which way is our touch going? All right, so we're going to test for that. Now, what we want to do is we want to go into update and modify this update so that it takes into account touches, because right now it only takes into account key presses. So I'm actually going to start at the top here, and I'm going to add in a statement that will say that the following code I'm about to write is only for mobile devices, in particular Android and iOS. So I'm going to say pound if, or hashtag if, depending on how old you are, Unity Android, so Unity underscore Android, or Unity underscore iOS, all right? And I'll do a pound end if. All right, and within the if block that we have created here, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if a touch occurred. So we're going to say if input dot touch count So if input.touch count is greater than 0. Now don't worry if you see that the code is grayed out. That's because right now our Unity build target is still set to just the editor, right? It's not set to either mobile target. So you're going to see the code here grayed out, which is okay. We'll fix that soon. So we're seeing if input.touch count is greater than 0. So the touch, right, equals input dot get touch of 0, right? So why is it of 0? Well, when you touch the screen, your finger is not touching one pixel. It's actually touching a group of pixels on the screen, right? And so when you say get touch of 0, you're saying grab me a pixel, right? Just grab me one pixel that was touched, okay? And so so having said that, we're just grabbing one pixel and we'll work with that. Now, let's check to see what phase we're in for our touching. All right, so we're going to say if the touch dot phase equals touch phase dot began. All right. Then we'll set our starting position. So we'll say touch start position is equal to the touch dot position, and close it off. All right. Else if the touch dot phase is equal to touch phase dot moved, or the touch dot phase equals touch phase dot ended, all right. So now we're checking to see if it's not the case of we're done, but instead we're either finishing or we're actually dragging. All right. So that's the next phase that we're checking for. All right. Now at this point we're actually going to do our magic here and implement some sort of action when we've touched the screen. So first, let's get the end position. We're going to say touch end position equals the touch dot position. Now actually what I'd like to do is let's pull our code. I'm just going to cut this out for a sec. Actually just comment it out so we can have our autocompletes in there, because you notice that, yeah, you can see there's already an error. So we want to double check our code here. So we'll actually put this inside. We'll re-enter it inside afterwards. All right, I forgot to put a 2 equal sign there. All right, that's better. So we'll leave this outside of that call until we're done. All right, otherwise the rest of the syntax looks fine. Okay, so we have touch position equals the touch dot position. Now, there's two possibilities here. Either we're dragging, right, in which touch end position and touch start position are not the same, or we have just tapped, and therefore touch end position and touch start position are the same value. Okay, let's get the XY location of our little touch here. So we'll say float x is equal to touch end position dot x minus touch start position dot x. Right, so we'll find the difference in dragging here. We'll say float y equals touch end position dot y minus touch start position dot y. Right, now like I said, these x's and y's, the difference will be 0 if it's a tap. So let's say if math f dot abs for absolute value of x is equal to 0, right, and math f dot abs of y is also equal to 0. That means there was no drag at all. All right. What we'll do is we'll use our direction string and just say direction equals tapped. All right. Now let's move on to seeing if it was a drag now. So now after this, if it's just a touch on the screen, this is it. Otherwise, if it was a drag, let's start with checking if it was drag left or right. So we'll say else if math f dot abs of x is greater than math f dot abs of y. All right. This is basically saying that if x is greater than y, then essentially we have moved left or right. All right. So now we can check to see, did we move right or did we move left? All right, by saying direction equals x greater than 0 question mark right or left. All right, what does this mean? We're using a question mark colon statement, which is like a really simplified if statement, by saying if x is greater than 0, that means we dragged right. Otherwise, x is less than 0, therefore we dragged left. Okay? Now, if it wasn't the case that we moved left or right, then we moved up or down. So we'll just say else, because that's all that's left. And we'll say direction equals y greater than 0, question mark, up, otherwise down. Okay, and we'll do a debug log to print out direction. So we'll say debug.log, and we'll say mobile input, and then a little too far there, direction. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to save, but just in case, make sure that you have that closing curly bracket that I've highlighted here, which I didn't have a second ago. So make sure you add in a closing curly bracket, hit save, and then switch over to your Unity editor. All right, and we're going to hit play. So again, making sure that Unity Remote is open. So I have my phone right here. I'm just going to hold it up to the webcam. Unity Remote is open. Everything's plugged in. It's plugged into my laptop. And I'm going to just hit play right now. All right, so you can see here, we have here Fembot in her idle position. I'm going to switch over to console though. And so actually I can't switch over to console because I have to press. I have to do some presses. I'm going to show you what our console taps here. So I'm going to just hit there, and actually you should be able to see on the bottom corner here, mobile input tap. So let's go with that. Now I'm going to swipe right. So I'm swiping right. I'm going to swipe left, right? Swipe up, swipe down. So and you should be able to, you should see the same view here on the phone as well. All right. So, and if I switch over to, and you have to make sure though that your game is like your game view is clicked as well. Now, if I click away to console, you can see all the console messages here. So tapped, and then we go down towards the bottom. Right? There's down, there's up. You see, it's actually taking, even though I just swiped once, it's actually constantly being called. All right. All right, so now we know that our touches work. Let's actually apply some real actions to our game here. And in fact, in our last encounter, we looked at using key presses to fire off animations. So let's do the same thing right now. So we're going to fire off some animations here. What we're going to do is we're going to set it up so that when you touch it, we're going to fire off attack 1 trigger. So I'm just going to take attack 1 trigger, the call to that we would fire off pressing the letter A. I'm going to apply it to just a tap. So under the if block where we do the tap, I'm going to put that in there. Now for swiping right and left, we looked at firing off projectiles with little particles around the projectile. So I'm going to take that block of code. Now, of course, you should be putting this inside methods, but since for time's sake, just to keep things simple in this video, I'm just going to copy and paste the code from below. So by swiping left and right, we're going to fire off a projectile. And then finally, for up and down, we'll take attack 3 trigger. Take that line of code that we would press for letter D. We'll put that there. All right. Now, making sure that your phone is plugged in and you've got the Unity remote app on, let's run this again. So let's hit save. All right. And let's switch back to our game and let it import or refresh. So let's hit play. All right, so you can see the game in my webcam. Sorry, trying to aim it properly there. I'm gonna zoom out a bit. So now I'm gonna actually perform some actions here. So I'm just gonna swipe left and right. All right, so you see my projectiles going nuts there. It doesn't matter if I swipe left or swipe right. I've got projectiles and stuff going on everywhere. You can see It actually looks much more crisper on the phone. So, and if I swipe up and down, right, takes a little bit of patience there, but you'll see that the animation fires, right? It also fires on the phone as well. I swipe down, same idea. The animation fires again. Now here's a tricky one. You'll be very patient with this because the animation is what it is. I'll hit tap, and there you go. There's the animation right there. So it did the attack one animation, right? So there you go. You have your game up and running right there. So now it's time to move on to publishing onto an Android device. So what we need to do, we need to open Unity Hub, which I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to open it up. We have here our Unity install is there. You can probably close this Unity window you have open and then bring it back later. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to installs. Okay. And under installs, you see all of the different versions of Unity that you have installed. Now I'm working with 2019.4.9 F1. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the three dots here and go to add modules. And you can do this for any version of Unity here. And you'll notice that we have here Android build support checked off and iOS build support. And if you don't have those checked off, check them off. And then expand the Android build support and check off both of these checkboxes. So Android SDK and NDK tools and OpenJDK. You want to make sure that this, and this are checked off. If you want to publish to Apple TV, you can check that off too. Go right ahead. If there's any other platforms you want, go for it as well. But these top 4 checkboxes are what we need. And then you'll hit done. So I already have it installed, so I don't have to worry about this, but you would probably have to hit done, go for a coffee, go grab lunch, come back in an hour or so, and it should be done downloading and installing at that point. Okay, so that's our first step, is that we're going to switch over to that. I'm going to hit cancel because I already have everything set up here. All right, so after you've installed those 2 modules through Unity Hub, what you want to do is you want to go to Edit and Preferences and External Tools, and scroll down till you see Android. And you want to make sure these checkboxes are checked. So JDK installed with Unity recommended, Android SDK tools installed with Unity recommended, and NDK as well recommended as well. So you want to make sure these checkboxes are checked if you're going to use the built-in Java JDK, SDK, and NDK with Unity. Now, if you prefer to go external, like actually have the direct Android files as opposed to using an OpenJDK, you can do that. And that involves downloading and installing Android Studio and configuring it accordingly. There are problems with this. You should be an expert or prepare to invest a lot of time in configuring your environment here for Android if you're going to use that particular setup. So what do I mean? Well, first off, let's open Android Studio. So I'm assuming you've already downloaded and installed it. If you haven't, you may want to pause and go ahead and do that right now. And so I'm going to drag Android Studio to this window here. So we got Android Studio. I'm not going to open a new Android Studio project. Instead, I'm going to go to Configure. So Configure is right here. And go to SDK Manager. And it's going to open up this window. And we can use this to download and install versions of Android that we want to support. So I already have Android 10 and Android 9 checked off. Notice that there's an update available for 8.1, so I could check that off if I wanted that. But basically check off the versions of Android Studio you want to install. And then you'll see that in my case, apply is grayed out, but you'll just hit apply. You'll accept the terms and conditions, and you'll just, you'll go away for a coffee, grab some lunch, whatever, and let it do its thing, let it do its install. Now, after you've done your SDK installation, then you want to go to SDK Tools. And inside SDK Tools, you want to check off NDK. All right. Now, I should warn you that NDKs, you see this, the version it's saying here is 21.3.65. This is very specific to Unity versions. So you want to know the version of Unity you're working with and get that specific NDK. And you'll have to probably Google search for the specific version of NDK that you want if you're doing this manually. Right? You'll need SDK platform tools. You'll also need Google Play Services and Google USB driver. These are the most important things you need. Right? If you want the simulator, you could download the Intel X8 Hacks and Installer simulator. But aside from that, it's just NDK, and SDK platform tools, Google Play Services, and USB driver. Those are the 4 things you need. Those are 4 core things. You'll check those off. You'll hit apply, let it do its thing. Go back for a coffee, go for lunch or whatever. Let it do its thing, come back. And then you can close things up. And then go back here. You'll have to uncheck these checkboxes then and specify the path to your SDK, to your JDK, and to your NDK. Okay, and then then you can close this off. And we're going to go to build settings. So we're going to go to build settings. All right, so when build settings pops up, we're going to choose Android. And we're going to say switch platform. And depending on how big the project is, this could take hours. It could take 5 minutes. It depends, again, how big the project is. Because what's going on is you can see that the project is re-importing itself. So it's gonna look through every file in the project and just re-import it from scratch. And you'll see also your Visual Studio is going to refresh as well. All right, so now that it's finished re-importing, you're almost ready to go. Now there's a bunch of settings here that we're going to investigate, and I'm going to talk about these later. First off, there's the basic settings here, and most importantly, run device. It says default device. So I hit the drop down. You should see your phone here or your tablet here. All right. If you don't, just hit refresh. It'll refresh. If you still don't, then you should check your phone to see if it has that message to trust this device. So once you hit OK, you should eventually see this. If you don't, maybe close Unity and reopen it again, or make sure you have the Google USB driver installed in the first place. All right, so that's the first thing to check here. Now there's also App Bundle, which is the new Google Play file format. All right, which you can check off to say this is what I want to build. Or if you want to build a regular APK file, which is the original app format, you could leave that unchecked. Now, I want to go into the player settings, the settings for building here. So I could hit player settings, right? And then under project settings, if I expand that, you'll see all your settings here for Google Play, all right? For publishing to Android. And there's a lot of settings here, all right? Now, I'll start at the top with name, product name. So whatever name you want to appear on the phone, just below the icon, you would type that, like, I don't know, my Android game, right? Sorry, that's company name. So you could just say my, well, in this case, I'll just say my super company. And then product name, which is whatever you'd want to see right below the icon on the phone. You could say like my super game. Now icons, all right? So what you could do here is you could hit select, and I'm just going to choose one of the textures that's already installed in the game, but whatever app icon you have, you would specify it here, right? So I'll just say this, not the greatest, but we're not focusing on perfection for this example. Leave default cursor unused. It's for if you had a cursor. It's not worth it, not worth having. Icon. So if you want to have some custom icons, right? But by default, using the default icon is good enough. You could actually ignore the icon category here. If I go to resolution and presentation, all right, then a lot of these are all default settings. The main takeaway here is allowed orientations. So I don't want my game to be in portrait at all, so I'm going to uncheck the 2 portraits. right? And then have landscape left, landscape right. If I only want to have one fixed landscape, I would just choose one and not the other. But other than that, I'll never probably come back to resolution or presentation ever again. So I'm going to minimize that. Splash image. So splash screen. So here you can configure the splash screen that you want to have appear. Now there's a difference between splash screen and logos, and basically splash like the splash screen will be right behind our logos. So first, let me choose, and also because if you're using the free version of Unity, you will have the Unity logo always. Right? Until you pay for Unity, you won't be able to get rid of the Unity logo. All right, so that's a heads up there. But first I'll start with background image, and I'll select an image. So I'm gonna just select one of the images I have for this project. So whatever images you have, just bring them in. That'll be a background image. Now, I also want to have some logos. And for the logos, I'm just gonna choose a couple of images, right? From the slider exercise we did a while ago. So I'm just choosing images I already have added on. I could have like one, maybe two logos here. You can set the duration. Minimum is 2, so you can't go shorter than 2, and you don't want to go any longer than that anyway. So I'll just choose another image. All right, and we're gonna have like a background. Actually, this is the same old. Well, okay, let's leave it. Looks good. So essentially, here is, and actually hit preview. Let's see, preview will do here. We'll kind of cover it up here by the build settings. I'm going to close up build settings for a second there, and just try preview again. So this is what you're going to see here in the game window. This is what it's going to look like. All right, so at least you can see what's going on there. It looks kind of elegant. Looks kind of nice the way we've done it up. So anyway, that's splash screen. I'm going to close up splash screen. Other settings is where you'll have to configure important items related to your game. And in particular, in publishing settings is probably the most important thing here. So package name. Every app that gets published on the App Store must have a unique name. So typically it's like com.companyname.name of the game, right? So whatever you have registered with Google Play and ultimately with iOS, you'll go with as well. Version number, so I don't know, like 1.0, right? Bundle version code must always be a unique number. Every time you upload a build to your Google Play account, it must be a unique number, all right? Now API level, all right? Minimum API level, you can set it to be whichever minimum API level you want. Target API level is important. Highest install is good. You'll get emails from Google telling you that, hey, this we're now saying that you must support Android 10, you must support Android 9. So you got to make sure that you rebuild your app and re-upload. And right now, Android 10, you got to make sure that Android 10 is listed here, which I don't. So you have to add in Android 10 eventually. All right, but you can specify your level for Android version that you wish to support. Now, scripting backend is a very important one. Mono is the original 32-bit scripting engine that we were using, but Google and Apple are demanding that you use 64-bit now. So you got to switch over to IL2CPP. Now, depending on how big your project is, this could cause a lot of crashes and issues, but you have to work around it and make sure you support IL2CPP so you can get the 64-bit support. Now, moving on further, .NET version, you can go with the 4X, right, or the standard 2.0. Target architectures, most important, you got to select ARM64. You have to have 64-bit support set up there. And essentially, internet access, do we need it for this game? Probably not. Write permission, internal or external, to allow writing to an SD card if you want. But you'd set all these settings here as needed. All right, so that's other settings. Now, once you have that done, publishing settings becomes the next most important thing, because when you upload to the Google Play Store, you need to specify a key store. Now, if it's your first build, your first upload, you'll have to create one, right? So click on Key Store Manager, create a key store file, and specify a password. Now, for our application, we're not publishing to the Google Play Store, so as you can see, it says the application will be signed with a debug key, which is okay for running off of your phone. But if you're going to upload to the store and you try uploading the APK you're going to build, Google will reject your build and say, hey, this was signed with a debug APK. So you can't fool Google that way. So don't even try. Other settings here, split and application binary. Now, this is important if you're not going to use the new Google AAB format. If you're going to use the traditional APK file format, what would happen is that Google has a maximum APK files upload size. And so you would have to check this off in order to, because typically games have so many graphics and whatnot that you are definitely going to go over the maximum size. And so what you do is you check off this checkbox, and so it would create multiple files. It would create your APK file, and it would create expansion packs that you would also upload at the same time, right? So that's why you would check off split application binary, because our application is so simple, it's not gonna hit that. Finally, these XR settings, if we were publishing, if this was a VR app, right? So you'd say AR core supported. We're not dealing with AR core right now, so we will leave that unchecked. All right, so now that we have this, we're ready to build. So what we do is we reopen build settings again. Now, just before we build, one thing I'm going to point out is if you look at the scenes in their build, the scenes are numbered from 0 to 3. The important thing to note here is that scene 0 is your home page. Well, setting scene here, if you see, is not supposed to be the home page. Technically, it should be home page. That's the home page. Or if you want, so you can just drag it up, drag scenes up and down to put them in the right order. If you really want to, you just want to test out minigame scene, you can drag minigame scene directly to the top. But basically, the scene that you want to have launch first should be there. Okay, so I'm going to hit build and run. Right, making sure the device is chosen that I'm looking for. I'm going to call it test.apk. I already had it built. So I'm going to say yes. It's going to replace it. And let's let it build. So it's going through, detecting SDK tools version. It's going through, and it's gonna run a build here. And so depending on whether you're dealing with a large project, it could take hours to do, it could take 5 minutes to do. It just depends on how big your project is and how powerful your computer is. So we'll just fast forward, see it's building now. It's gonna pause and we'll fast forward into letting it do its thing. All right, and so now you see here that you should see in the webcam there, it did briefly do the splash screen there, and it went straight to the home page. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on, and the buttons are really small, so that kind of tells you the scaling of the UI needs to be worked on. That's a different lesson altogether. But I'm gonna hit the button to go straight to Fembot. This is on Android. Now this is not Unity Remote. This is an actual Android app that is running on my phone. So I'm just gonna try tapping there, right? Or swiping up and down. And you can see, yeah, there's some of the projectiles firing off. Right there, right? Tapping, swipe up and down. You can see an animation happening. But yeah, essentially now this is an Android app that has been published directly onto my phone. So now I could just close this, open this as I see fit anytime I want. All right, so now let's move on to iOS app development at this point. So now we've got our app on the Android device. We have an APK built. Now it's time to move on to iOS. All right, and now the last part of this tutorial involves switching and trying to build for iOS. So as you can see here, we have iOS, and I'm using a Windows computer, as you can see here. I'm going to click on iOS. I'm going to hit switch platform. You'll notice that there's not as much here to worry about. The process here is that you're going to switch platforms to iOS, and you'll build for iOS, but you're going to build an Xcode project. Copy that Xcode project onto a USB key, switch over to a Mac, copy it there, open Xcode, build and run there. So you cannot build and run directly to iOS from a Windows computer because there's no capability for that at all. So you need a Mac in order to be able to publish to iOS. It's just the way it's always been. Doesn't matter what platform, what you're building, you always need a Mac to build an iOS app. So I'll take you as far as building the project. All right, so what it's going to do right now is it's going to re-import the entire project, which will take a bit of time. So I'll fast forward ahead and we will reconvene when it's done importing, and we'll look at the settings again. But the settings are pretty well the same, except for some major Android specific differences as Android. So you'll see that publishing for iOS is a little bit less work than Android. All right, so now that it's finished, switching over, you'll notice that build and run is grayed out because like I said, I'm using a Windows computer and it won't let me build and run directly to an iOS device. So then you don't see an option to choose an iOS device at all either. I'm just gonna go to player settings. Let's expand player settings. You notice that a lot of the settings from Android are still there. My icon is there. And resolution now. You also uncheck portraits and left the landscape left and right. And splash image, it kept splash images. So logos, everything is still there. And going to debugging and crash reporting, these are specific to iOS. Other settings, it kept a lot of the settings. So build, we'll just have to set a build number, version number. Your bundle identifier will have to be specific to what you have in the Apple App Store. You have IL2 CPP guaranteed there, .NET Standard 2.0, and just whatever settings you need. Just have a look through and see which settings you need for your specific game. Target SDK. All right, in this case, we're saying minimum iOS is iOS 10. We're targeting iPhone and iPad. Right, and so at this point, we're ready to build. So I'll just hit build. I'm gonna create a folder called iOS build. And inside iOS build, I'll just say select folder and build. And it'll take a bit of time, of course, to start building. It's going to build an entire Xcode project that and like I said before, you'll copy over to your Mac and build it from there. All right, so you see it's building. So it's going to go through this whole process. So I'm just going to pause the video and we'll fast forward to when we're done. All right, and so when it's done, you'll see a Windows Explorer window pop up, and there's iOS build. You see all the files you need for iOS, right? So now the goal here is to actually take this iOS build folder, copy it to USB stick, copy it over to a Mac, copy it over there, open up in Xcode, and in fact, the project file itself is Unity iPhone.xcode proj. It's actually going to be a file you can double click, but this is what it looks like in the Windows world. But anyway, just head over to Mac and we'll see it over there. All right, so the final step here, I'm not taking the project that we built so far, but I'm just going to take an actual established project that I've built called Code Llama, and we're going to just see how we would build it. So this is the Unity iPhone project, Xcode project that is auto-generated, and what we're going to do is we're going to see how we can get this thing to build. So what I want to show you is, first off, the file browser Finder. This is where all the files are that I've copied over. What you would do is you would open up unity-iphone.xcode project. Now, I have a unity-iphone.xc workspace right below it. That's because I have external libraries, CocoaPods, that I brought in. And so I had to generate the pods and I had to do the install, and I generated XC workspace because I'm dealing with Firebase in my game here. So I would actually launch XC workspace file. I would double click it, Xcode would open, and here I am. So all you have to do is build it. You should not have to modify any code or make any changes to this project here. Now, I have from time to time had to hack a couple of files in here, but that's because I'm advanced enough in iOS development to understand what's going on. There were a few bugs here or there that you may have to find and edit yourself, but there are good forums for that. So for now, but for the most part, you shouldn't have to do anything for this project other than configure and getting ready for the Apple App Store. So first thing I'll do is making sure that I've highlighted the project settings here, all right, and going to target Unity iPhone. You want to enable merge automatic signing, choose your team, bundle identifier should be specified, and more importantly, if you have any capabilities, you'll see them listed down here. I have in-app purchase over here. If you have any other capabilities, you'll hit the plus sign and you'll search for them. Right? So for example, like health kit, game center, home kit, whatever other kits you need, most likely it's just in-app purchase, which you would have searched for here. By default, in-app purchase does not come included. You have to actually add it in. So if you were to run this and test your in-app purchases and they didn't work, it's probably because you're missing in-app purchase from here. All right, so having said that, we've configured it all. We would just simply choose our device. I don't have anything plugged into my Mac right now, but if I click here where it says generic iOS device, I should see whatever phone or iPad I have plugged in. By default, the project does not work with the simulators, and it's either something that Unity has not addressed yet, or it's just something they don't plan on addressing. Because there are nuances with Xcode where projects that you copy over into Xcode that you don't create yourself do tend to run into this issue of simulators not connecting properly. So, and it has more to do with the iOS version. Like if I play with the iOS version here, I should be able to choose which iOS version I'm dealing with, right? And it's most likely because the version of iOS is not installed on my Mac. That's probably the most likely reason. But anyway, once you're done, you'll just hit the play button. It's not going to work for me. All right. It's not going to work for me because I don't have a device set up. All right. So if I hit play, see it says no device here. If I hit play, this is the issue. Now, I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to assume that you've already plugged in a phone or an iPad. You've ran it. You're happy with the game. It's on your phone. And you know, you're ready to upload to the App Store. Well, you would just go to product and archive, and it'll start building an archive. Now it failed for me because my configurations aren't complete right now. I had some errors as you may have noticed, but it would build an archive and upload. Give you the option to upload to the App Store directly through Xcode. All right, and so that's it for our tutorial on getting published onto mobile. So hopefully you found some benefit in this, and you'll make an attempt to upload to the Google Play Store and to the Apple App Store. And I'll see you in the next tutorial. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.